He promised me love. He promised me forever. But as I stood there, hidden behind the crowd, my heart shattered into pieces. I watched him standing at the altar, looking handsome in his black suit, his face glowing with a happiness I once believed was reserved only for me. But the woman he was about to marry wasn't me. It was my best friend, Sarah, the person who knew all my secrets, my fears, my dreams, the person I trusted most in the world. My vision blurred with tears as I saw them holding hands, smiling at each other with the same look of love and devotion he once gave me. I tried to hold back my sobs, but the pain was too much. I felt betrayed, lost, and completely alone. How could they do this to me? How could they take the two people I loved most in the world and tear my heart apart like this? The memories came rushing back. The promises he made, whispered softly in my ear during late-night walks under the stars. The plans we had talking about our future together, naming our future kids, dreaming about the home we would build. And Sarah. We grew up together, shared everything, laughed and cried through life's ups and downs. She was supposed to be my rock, my sister. But now she was standing where I should have been, wearing the beautiful white dress that should have been mine. I clutched my chest, trying to breathe through the pain that felt like a knife twisting deeper with every second. They had both promised to love me, protect me, and never hurt me. But as they said their vows, those promises burned away, leaving only bitter ashes behind. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. All I could do was watch helplessly as the life I dreamed of vanished right in front of my eyes. But as the ceremony ended and they kissed, sealing their betrayal forever, I made myself a silent vow. They might have broken me today, but one day they would pay for what they had done. And when that day came, I would make sure they both realized exactly what they had lost and what I had become. Days turned into weeks, but the pain didn't go away. It settled deep inside me, like an open wound that refused to heal. Every morning, I woke up hoping it was just a bad dream, but reality always slapped me in the face. My best friend had married the man I loved. I couldn't escape it. Pictures of their perfect life filled my social media, taunting me with every smile, every loving glance, every moment they stole from me. I spent my days locked away in my small apartment, avoiding friends, ignoring calls, barely eating or sleeping. The world felt empty, cold, and meaningless. But one night, when I was at my lowest, scrolling mindlessly through their wedding photos with tears streaming down my face, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Curious and desperate for distraction, I opened it. The message read, "I know you're hurting, but trust me, this is your chance to start over. Meet me tomorrow. Your life is about to change." I stared at the screen, puzzled. Was it some cruel joke? Who could possibly know my pain or want to help? My heart raced, but something inside me stirred, whispering that maybe, just maybe, this was a sign. I hesitated for hours, debating if I should reply. Eventually, desperation won out. I typed back a simple, "Who are you?" Seconds later, another message arrived. Someone who knows exactly what betrayal feels like. Someone who can help you rise again. The next day, nervous and skeptical, I walked into a cozy cafe downtown, scanning the room for anyone who looked out of place. My eyes landed on a woman sitting near the window, elegantly dressed, radiating confidence. She smiled softly and waved me over. My legs felt heavy, but I forced myself forward and took the seat across from her. "I'm glad you came," she said warmly, introducing herself as Rebecca. She spoke softly but firmly, her eyes full of understanding and strength. "I know you don't know me, but believe me, I know exactly how you feel. I've been there." Her words struck something deep inside me. I felt tears welling up again, but I held them back, nodding quietly. "But how can you help me?" I asked, my voice trembling. She leaned closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "By teaching you how to rebuild yourself stronger, better, and more powerful than you ever imagined. You see, betrayal breaks us, but it also gives us an opportunity. You can either drown in your pain, or you can use it as fuel to become someone who can never be hurt like this again." Her words sank into my heart, sparking something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. Rebecca explained she was a successful businesswoman, someone who had risen from betrayal herself, and she was now looking for others she could mentor, women who needed someone to believe in them again. "I see myself in you," she continued. "I see potential. But first, you have to decide. Do you want to stay broken, or do you want to take control?" I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Could I really do this? Could I really become someone new, someone strong, someone who didn't need anyone else's love or validation? I thought about Sarah and him, how happy they looked, how cruelly they had moved on, leaving me in pieces. In that moment, I made my choice. I lifted my chin, meeting Rebecca's gaze with determination. "I'm ready," I whispered. "I want to take control." Rebecca smiled, nodding with satisfaction. "Good. Then, let's get started." I didn't know it then, but that meeting was the beginning of a new chapter. They had broken me, but I would put myself back together, piece by piece, stronger than before. And one day, they would see just how much they underestimated me. After that day, everything changed. Rebecca became more than a mentor. She became my guiding light, pushing me to discover a strength I never knew existed. She believed in me at a time when I couldn't even believe in myself. I started spending my days with her, learning everything about business, finance, confidence, and power. She introduced me to influential people, taught me how to command a room, how to stand tall, and most importantly, how to never let anyone's opinion define my worth again. Each day was hard, but each day I felt myself growing stronger, more confident, more powerful. I began working with Rebecca in her company, throwing myself into projects with passion and determination. Late nights, early mornings, nothing felt too hard, because for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of purpose. And slowly, the pain that had once consumed me began to fade, replaced by a fire that burned brighter each day. Months passed, and my transformation was undeniable. I no longer hid from the world. Instead, I embraced it. I dressed differently, spoke differently, carried myself with the kind of confidence that turned heads when I walked into a room. The broken-hearted girl I once was slowly disappeared, replaced by a woman who knew exactly who she was and exactly what she deserved. One evening, Rebecca called me into her office and sat me down, a serious expression on her face. "You've come a long way," she began, pride in her voice. "But now it's time for you to step into your own spotlight. There's an opportunity that I believe is meant for you. A struggling company needs a new leader, someone fearless, someone willing to take risks and bring it back to life." I listened carefully, curious, yet cautious. "Why me?" I asked softly, still unsure of myself at times. "Because you have what it takes," she replied firmly. "And this isn't just any company. It's the perfect chance for you to show everyone who doubted you just how powerful you've become." I raised an eyebrow, confused. "What do you mean?" She smiled knowingly. "The company is owned by someone you know very well, someone who once thought they could hurt you without consequences." My heart skipped a beat. "You don't mean—" "Exactly," Rebecca interrupted, her eyes sparkling. "The CEO is stepping down, and they're desperate for someone to take over and save it." They don't know you're connected, which gives you all the leverage you need. Imagine their shock when they realize the woman who now controls their fate is the same one they betrayed. My pulse raced. Could I really do this? Could I really walk back into their lives, not as a broken girl, but as a powerful woman with the ability to control their future? The thought sent a thrill down my spine. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about proving to myself that I had risen above the pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak. I had a chance to rewrite my story on my own terms. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I'm ready," I said, my voice stronger than ever. "Tell me everything." As Rebecca began to outline the details, a quiet confidence settled inside me. I had been torn apart by their betrayal, but from those ashes, I had rebuilt myself. Now, it was time for them to see just how much their actions had changed me, and how I was no longer someone they could break. They had once ruled my world, but soon I would rule theirs. The first time I walked into that familiar building, my heart pounded so loudly, I was sure everyone could hear it. The glass doors, the polished marble floors, the buzzing offices, it all brought back a rush of memories. This was the place where I had first met him, where we had once worked side by side, exchanging secret smiles across the room. Now, I was walking in not as the naive girl who fell in love, but as the new CEO, ready to take control. Every step I took echoed in my mind, each one strengthening my resolve. My heels clicked confidently as employees glanced up curiously, whispering among themselves, wondering who I was. I had changed so much, no one recognized me at first. I wore an elegant suit, tailored perfectly, my hair styled flawlessly. I no longer hid behind insecurities. Instead, I wore confidence like armor. The boardroom doors opened, and as I stepped inside, my breath caught. There they were, both of them. My ex, Ethan, sat at the far end of the table, looking stressed and worn down, far from the confident man I remembered. Beside him, Sarah shifted nervously, her eyes glued to the table. They both looked older, tired, unhappy. For a brief moment, a flicker of sympathy sparked in my heart, but I quickly snuffed it out. They had chosen their path, and I had chosen mine. I walked to the head of the table, taking a seat without hesitation. As all eyes focused on me, Ethan looked up, his eyes widening in shock. Sarah gasped quietly, her hand covering her mouth. They hadn't been told who the new CEO was. This moment was mine, and I intended to savor it. "Hello, everyone," I said calmly, my voice steady. "As you all know, I'm your new CEO. For those of you who don't recognize me, my name is Olivia, and yes, I've worked here before. It's good to be back." A stunned silence filled the room. Ethan's face turned pale and Sarah looked away, unable to meet my gaze. The tension was thick, but I embraced it, letting the power of the moment fill me. I knew they were confused, scared, maybe even angry, but that was their problem, not mine. I began the meeting confidently, laying out my plans for the company, highlighting bold new strategies that would pull it out of its financial mess. Every word I spoke was met with nods of approval from the board members. Ethan's hands clenched tightly, the frustration clear in his eyes. I could feel his disbelief, his regret radiating off him. Sarah stayed silent, shrinking into herself. When the meeting ended, everyone filed out, leaving just the three of us. Ethan finally broke the silence. "Olivia," he began, his voice strained, I had no idea." "Of course you didn't," I said coldly, meeting his eyes. "You never really knew me at all, did you?" He swallowed hard, clearly searching for words. "I know I hurt you," he stammered, "but this isn't about you." I cut him off sharply. "This is about me. This is about taking back the power you both thought you could strip away. You once had everything, Ethan. My love, my loyalty. You threw it away. Now I'm here to clean up your mess. Sarah finally looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. I'm so sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. I never meant to hurt you like this. I felt a pang in my heart but pushed it down. But you did, I replied, my voice softer now but still firm. Both of you did, and I've moved on. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because I'm the best person for this job. If you have a problem with that, feel free to leave. But I'm not going anywhere. Ethan slumped back in his chair, defeated. Sarah looked away again, ashamed. They had no power here anymore. For the first time, I felt truly free, no longer chained by their betrayal. I expect both of you to perform at your best, I continued calmly. Personal feelings have no place here. Understood? They nodded silently, both unable to speak. As I stood to leave, I paused, looking back at them. And just so we're clear, I said firmly, you may have broken my heart once, but now your futures depend on me. I hope you can live with that. Walking out of that room, I felt lighter than I had in years. The pain had finally lost its grip on me. Now, I was in control, and they knew it. They had built their lives on my tears, but from now on, they would have to live in a world I ruled. And for the first time since their betrayal, I felt truly at peace. Over the next few weeks, the company transformed rapidly under my leadership. Every decision I made proved successful, earning me the respect and admiration of my team. I threw myself into work, pouring all my energy into turning the business around, proving not just to others but to myself that I deserved every ounce of my newfound success. My confidence grew each day, and I knew my value didn't depend on anyone's approval anymore, especially not Ethan's or Sarah's. Yet despite my focus, I couldn't help noticing the cracks appearing in their lives. Ethan seemed to grow more anxious and unhappy by the day. Sarah was rarely seen smiling, often hiding away in her office. I heard whispers from employees about their constant arguments, rumours of tension between them. It was clear their perfect life wasn't so perfect after all. Part of me felt a quiet satisfaction, but another part felt something else. Sadness. It wasn't sympathy, just the bitter realization that their betrayal had cost them more than they ever imagined. One afternoon, I was working late when a soft knock interrupted my thoughts. I looked up, surprised to see Sarah standing hesitantly at my door, looking fragile and unsure of herself. She looked older, worn down, a shadow of the vibrant woman she once was. I nodded, allowing her to come in. She stepped inside, eyes downcast, fiddling nervously with her hands. Olivia, she began softly, her voice shaking. I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I have to say this. I need you to know how deeply sorry I am. I never wanted to hurt you. I watched her carefully, feeling a strange mixture of anger and curiosity. Then, why did you? I asked calmly. Tears filled her eyes as she struggled for words. I was selfish, she whispered. Ethan and I, things just happened so fast. We thought it was love, but now. She looked away, wiping a tear from her cheek. Now, everything's falling apart. I felt my heart twist slightly, but I refused to soften. You both made a choice, Sarah. Choices have consequences. She nodded slowly, her eyes filled with regret. I know, and now we're paying for it. Ethan is miserable. I'm miserable. We've lost everything, friends, respect, happiness, and now we're about to lose our jobs too. Ethan's afraid you'll fire us both, and honestly, we deserve it. I took a deep breath, considering her words carefully. I had every right to fire them. No one would blame me. But as I looked at her broken figure, something shifted inside me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about proving I was better than them. I didn't need to destroy their lives to feel powerful. I already was powerful. "Sarah," I said finally, my voice gentle but firm, "I'm not here to punish you. What you did was wrong, and you hurt me deeply. But I'm not like you. I don't thrive on others' pain. You and Ethan can keep your jobs, but only because I believe people deserve a second chance. Don't waste it." Her eyes widened in disbelief. You're not firing us." "No," I replied calmly. "But understand this. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for myself. Because unlike you, I don't need revenge to feel good. My power comes from knowing I've moved past your betrayal." She nodded quickly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't deserve it." "Maybe not," I said, meeting her eyes. "But that's not my burden to carry. It's yours." Sarah turned to leave, but before she reached the door, she paused. "Olivia," she said softly, looking back at me, "I was wrong about so many things, but mostly about you. You're stronger than I ever imagined. Ethan sees it now too. He regrets everything." I smiled faintly, not out of satisfaction, but because I realized something important. Their regret wasn't my reward. My real reward was becoming someone who could forgive but never forget, who could hold power without abusing it. After she left, I sat back in my chair, feeling a strange sense of closure. They had betrayed me, but I had risen above it. I didn't need their apologies or their regret. All I needed was the knowledge that I had grown beyond their reach. They once controlled my happiness, but now their fate rested in my hands. Yet, I chose mercy, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. And in that moment, I knew I had truly won. Even though I had offered Ethan and Sarah a second chance, the tension didn't disappear overnight. Every day at the office, I could feel their discomfort, their silent shame, and their growing realization that I was no longer the woman they once betrayed. I watched from a distance as they struggled to find their place in this new reality, where I was in charge and their past choices haunted them. Ethan especially seemed troubled. The man who once stood tall with arrogance now seemed smaller, burdened by regret. Sometimes I caught him glancing my way, a look of remorse mixed with longing. It made me uneasy, but I refused to give it much thought. I had moved past him, past our history. I had finally rebuilt myself, and I wasn't about to be dragged back into the past. But one evening, as I stayed late finishing a project, Ethan appeared at my door. He stood there, looking hesitant, hands shoved deep into his pockets. His eyes, once filled with pride, now held a quiet desperation. "Can I talk to you?" he asked softly. I hesitated for a moment but nodded, inviting him in. He closed the door gently and sat across from me, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "Olivia," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I don't expect forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I need you to know how deeply sorry I am. You deserved so much better than what I did to you." I stared at him, trying to keep my expression neutral. "Why now?" I asked calmly. "You had plenty of time to apologize before, Ethan. Why are you doing it now?" He sighed heavily, running his hand through his hair, looking broken. "Because seeing you like this, so strong, so powerful, so in control, made me realize what I lost. I was blind. I threw away the best thing in my life for a fantasy, and now my life is falling apart. Sarah and we're miserable. All we do is fight, and seeing you every day is just a painful reminder of how wrong I was." His words hung heavy in the air. For a moment, I felt a brief satisfaction, knowing he regretted everything. But it quickly faded, replaced by an unexpected sadness, Seeing him like this didn't make me feel better. Instead, it made me realize that their betrayal hadn't just hurt me. It had destroyed them too. "Ethan," I finally said, my voice steady. "I appreciate you saying this, but it doesn't change anything. You made your choice and I made mine. I've moved on. What happened between you and Sarah isn't my problem anymore." He nodded slowly, tears welling in his eyes. "I know. I don't expect anything from you. But I wanted you to know how sorry I am. How much I regret everything. You deserved better." I felt a wave of emotions, anger, sadness, relief. But more than anything, a profound sense of closure. "I did deserve better," I said firmly, meeting his gaze. "But I found better within myself. I learned how to love myself, to value myself, and to never let anyone break me again. And honestly, I'm grateful. Because of your betrayal, I became someone stronger." Ethan stared at me, speechless. Finally, he managed a weak smile. "You really have changed. You're amazing." "No," I corrected gently. "I was always amazing. You just never saw it." He stood slowly, preparing to leave. But before he did, he turned back one last time. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. And I'm so sorry." I watched him walk out, the door closing softly behind him. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely free from him. His apology didn't heal all the wounds, but it closed a painful chapter I had struggled to move past. I finally understood that my happiness didn't depend on his regret, his pain, or even his apology. It came from within me. As I packed up to go home that night, a sense of calm washed over me. Ethan and Sarah's betrayal had almost destroyed me, but instead, it had shaped me into someone resilient, confident, and self-assured. They no longer had power over my life, my emotions, or my future. Walking out of the office, I smiled softly to myself, knowing that the worst moments of my past had led me to the best version of myself. They might still be trapped in their regrets, but I was finally free. And in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all. Life began to feel different after Ethan's apology. The heavy weight that had lingered for so long slowly lifted, leaving me with a newfound sense of peace. Each day at work, I grew more confident, driven not by bitterness or revenge, but by genuine pride in what I had accomplished. The company was thriving under my leadership, and I was finally living for myself, not defined by anyone else's actions or approval. Yet, even though I'd found closure with Ethan, I still felt a lingering sense of unfinished business with Sarah. Our friendship had once meant everything to me. Losing her trust had hurt just as deeply as losing Ethan's love. I often saw her at the office, still quiet and withdrawn, but I never approached her. A part of me wanted to avoid facing that pain again, but deep down, I knew I needed to confront her if I was ever going to fully move on. One rainy afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I noticed Sarah standing alone outside under the building's awning, looking lost and broken. She didn't notice me at first, her eyes fixed on the pouring rain, shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. I hesitated briefly, but finally walked over, standing quietly beside her. She looked startled when she saw me, her face pale and tired. "Olivia," she said softly, her voice weak. "I'm sorry. I didn't see you." We stood silently for a moment, the sound of rain filling the empty space between us. Finally, I broke the silence. "Sarah, I think it's time we talk." She nodded slowly, looking down, her eyes filled with guilt and shame. "I understand if you hate me. You have every right to—" I sighed, shaking my head slightly. "I did hate you for a long time. You were my best friend, Sarah. I trusted you more than anyone else in the world. Losing you hurt more than losing him." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she listened. "I know," she whispered. "I was selfish. I don't have any excuses. But please, know how deeply sorry I am. It wasn't worth it. None of it was. Ethan and I, we're not even happy. All we did was destroy everything good we had. We destroyed our friendship, your trust, and now our own marriage is falling apart. Hearing her admit that brought me no joy, only sadness. The pain she caused me was still there, but it no longer defined me. Sarah, I said gently, I don't want to hold on to anger anymore. It's exhausting. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about letting you off the hook. It's about freeing myself from the hurt. She looked up, eyes wide with surprise. You mean, you forgive me? I thought carefully before answering. I'm choosing to let go, I clarified softly. I won't forget what you did, but I don't want to carry the pain anymore. You have to live with your choices, but I refuse to let them control me. She nodded, wiping her tears away. You're so much stronger than I ever imagined, she whispered. I wish I could be half as strong as you. You can, I replied gently, but you have to forgive yourself too. You need to move forward and learn from this, just like I did. Sarah took a deep breath, looking out at the rain again, her voice barely audible. Do you think there's any chance we could ever be friends again? I hesitated, considering her question deeply. I don't know, I admitted honestly. Too much has happened. Maybe someday, but not now. For now, we both need to heal separately. She nodded quietly, accepting my answer. I understand. We stood silently again, each lost in our own thoughts. Finally, Sarah turned to me once more, her eyes soft and genuine. Thank you, Olivia, for being better than I was, for not hurting me the way I hurt you. I smiled softly, feeling a quiet strength inside me. I don't need to hurt you to feel better. I just needed to reclaim myself. And now, I have. She offered a small, sincere smile, and without another word, walked out into the rain, leaving me standing there alone. Watching her go, I felt a final weight lift from my heart. The anger and betrayal no longer consumed me. I had truly moved past it. As I stepped out into the rain myself, I felt cleansed, renewed. The past could no longer haunt me, and neither Ethan nor Sarah held power over me anymore. I had learned to forgive without forgetting, to rebuild without bitterness. Their betrayal had shattered me, but in doing so, it had also shaped me into someone unbreakable. In that moment, I realized I had become exactly who I was meant to be, not despite their betrayal, but because of it. And finally, I felt completely free. With Ethan and Sarah finally behind me, life started to open up in ways I never expected. Work continued to flourish, and my confidence grew stronger by the day. People began to notice not only the success of the company, but the woman who had brought it back to life. I found myself being invited to speak at conferences, featured in articles, and recognized as an influential leader in the industry. My past heartbreak no longer defined me. Instead, it became a story of strength and resilience that inspired others. One evening, at a prestigious awards gala, I stood on stage holding an award for Business Leader of the Year, feeling both proud and humble. As I gave my speech, looking out at the sea of faces applauding my achievements, I spotted Ethan and Sarah seated quietly in the back. They both looked different, older, worn, yet strangely peaceful. This time, their presence didn't hurt or unsettle me. Instead, it reminded me of how far I had come. After the ceremony, as I mingled with guests, Ethan approached me cautiously, Sarah by his side. They both looked nervous, but sincere. "Congratulations, Olivia," Ethan said, his voice filled with genuine respect. "You truly deserve this." Sarah nodded in agreement, smiling gently. "You inspire everyone, including us. We're genuinely happy for you. Thank you." I replied warmly, feeling no bitterness, only gratitude for the journey that had brought me here. I hope you both find happiness too. They smiled softly, and after exchanging a few more polite words, they slipped away, leaving me feeling a deep sense of closure. They no longer haunted me. In fact, their presence felt like a final chapter closing, allowing me to move forward freely. Just then, Rebecca approached, her eyes sparkling with pride. "Look at you," she said affectionately, embracing me. "I always knew you had it in you. You're not just successful, you're a symbol of strength and transformation." I smiled, feeling my heart swell. "Thank you, Rebecca. None of this would have happened without you. You saved me when I didn't even know how to save myself." She shook her head gently. "I only showed you the path. You're the one who walked it. You earned this." Later that night, as I returned home, the quiet solitude allowed me to reflect deeply on my journey. I remembered the pain of watching Ethan marry Sarah, the dark days that followed, and the quiet moment I chose to fight back. It was hard to believe that same heartbroken girl was now an empowered woman, recognized and respected by so many. But my greatest victory wasn't the award or recognition. It was discovering my own worth, learning to love myself fiercely, and realizing that true power came from within. Ethan and Sarah's betrayal had once defined me, but now it was just a small part of a much bigger story, one where I became the hero of my own life. In the days that followed, I continued to rise higher, but my ambition was no longer about proving others wrong. It was about honoring the woman I had become. I took time to mentor others, especially women who found themselves lost or broken, just as I once was. Each time I shared my story, I saw hope ignite in their eyes, just as it once had in mine. One afternoon, after speaking at an event, a young woman approached me hesitantly, tears in her eyes. "Your story gave me hope," she said softly. "My fiancé left me for my friend. I thought my life was over. But hearing how you rebuilt yourself makes me believe I can too." I took her hands gently, looking into her eyes with understanding. "You can," I assured her. "I won't lie. It's hard, but within that pain is your greatest opportunity. You will rise, you will heal, and you will be stronger than you ever imagined." She hugged me tightly, and as I held her, I realized that my pain had not been in vain. It had transformed into something meaningful, powerful, and healing, not just for myself, but for others too. That evening, sitting alone in my living room, I smiled quietly, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. Ethan and Sarah's betrayal had once torn my world apart, but now I knew their actions had unknowingly set me on a path to something greater than I ever dreamed possible. I had become someone who ruled her own world, not out of bitterness or revenge, but out of self-love, strength, and resilience. Their betrayal had been my greatest pain, but it had also become my greatest gift. And in the end, I realized I didn't need to rule Ethan's world, because I had built my own. A world where I was strong, confident, and unapologetically myself. That was the true victory, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Time moved forward, and I continued to thrive, not just in my career, but in every part of my life. I learned to embrace joy again, opening my heart to new friendships, new experiences, and even the possibility of new love. But this time, I was wiser, stronger, and deeply aware of my worth. I promised myself I would never again settle for anything less than what I deserved. The company flourished under my guidance, reaching heights no one had thought possible. With each success, I grew more grateful for the path that had brought me here, even the painful parts. I no longer saw Ethan and Sarah's betrayal as a loss, but as the turning point that shaped me into who I was meant to be. One sunny afternoon, as I was packing my things to leave the office early, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message. It was from Ethan, and it read simply, "Can we talk? Please." Curious but cautious, I agreed to meet him at a small cafe nearby. When I arrived, he was already there, sitting quietly in a corner, looking older and more humble than I'd ever seen him. He stood awkwardly as I approached, greeting me with a hesitant smile. "Thank you for coming," he said softly, pulling out my chair politely before sitting across from me. He seemed nervous, genuinely unsure of himself. "What's this about, Ethan?" I asked gently but firmly. "I thought we had said everything there was to say." He nodded, sighing deeply. "We did, but this isn't about me anymore. It's about Sarah. She's not doing well. Our marriage ended months ago, and she's been struggling deeply ever since. She feels overwhelming guilt about what happened with you. She's not herself anymore." My heart twisted slightly, surprised at the wave of compassion I felt for her. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked quietly. "Because she wants to see you," he said softly. "She won't say it directly, but I know she needs closure. She believes she ruined your life, and it's eating her alive." I thought about it carefully, weighing my feelings. Seeing Sarah again wouldn't be easy, but something inside me knew it was necessary. I agreed to meet her the following day, knowing it would be a final, important step toward true healing. When I walked into the small coffee shop the next afternoon, I found Sarah already there, looking frail, her eyes red from tears. She stood when she saw me, trembling slightly. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and sat across from her. "Olivia?" she began, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me. I don't deserve it." "I'm not here to punish you, Sarah," I said calmly. "Ethan told me you needed this." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I've been carrying so much guilt. I hurt you more than anyone ever should, especially a friend. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know how deeply sorry I am. I can't forgive myself." I watched her closely, feeling a deep sadness for both of us. We had been inseparable once, and our bond had been shattered. Yet, seeing her broken, I felt no triumph, only empathy. "Sarah," I said gently, reaching across the table to take her hand softly. "What happened between us broke my heart, but it also led me to the strongest, happiest version of myself. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about making what you did okay. It's about freeing myself from pain. I forgave you a long time ago. Now it's your turn to forgive yourself." She stared at me, disbelief in her eyes. "You forgive me?" "Yes," I said simply, feeling peace in my heart. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to move forward. And so do you." She broke down, sobbing quietly, relief washing over her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're truly amazing. I wish I could go back and change everything." "We can't change the past," I replied softly, "but we can choose what we become because of it." We sat in silence for a while, a quiet understanding settling between us. Finally, Sarah smiled weakly, looking more hopeful. "I hope someday we can find our way back to each other as friends. But even if we don't, just know how deeply I appreciate this moment." "I hope so too," I said honestly. "Maybe one day. But even if that day never comes, I wish you peace." As we parted ways, I felt lighter, truly free of the past's shadows. I had finally faced every piece of my betrayal, finding closure in a way I never expected. I had thought my revenge would come from ruling their world, but in reality, it had come from reclaiming my own heart. That night, as I sat quietly in my apartment, reflecting on my journey, I felt immense gratitude. The pain Ethan and Sarah had caused was now transformed into wisdom and strength. I no longer needed validation or apologies from them. My true victory had always been in rediscovering and loving myself fiercely. And as I looked toward the future, I knew one thing for certain. My past had not defined me. It had refined me. I had survived betrayal, healed from heartbreak, and emerged stronger and kinder. In that knowledge, I found true peace, realizing that the most powerful revenge was never about ruling someone else's world. It was about mastering your own. Months passed, turning into a year, and my life continued to flourish in ways I had never dreamed possible. My heart felt whole again, not because of a new love or because I'd conquered my past, but because I had finally embraced myself fully, flaws and all. I was no longer the victim of betrayal, but a survivor, a victor in my own story. The painful chapters of my past now felt like distant memories, important but no longer defining. The company thrived beyond all expectations, growing into a powerful force in the industry, admired by many. But more importantly, I grew alongside it. My journey from heartbreak to healing had shaped me into someone who didn't just chase success, but who understood the deeper meaning of true power, the power to rise above pain, to inspire others, and to never allow the actions of others to determine my worth. One evening, after a long but fulfilling day, I found myself sitting in the same cafe where Rebecca had first given me hope. As I sipped my coffee, lost in thought, I saw a young woman sitting alone, her eyes red from crying. Something about her pain resonated deeply with me. I remembered vividly what it felt like to be in her place. Without thinking, I approached her gently. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. She looked up, startled, but quickly sensing my sincerity. "Not really," she admitted quietly. "My boyfriend just left me for someone I trusted. I feel so broken." I smiled gently, taking a seat across from her. "I know how much that hurts," I said honestly. "But if you're open to hearing it, I can tell you from experience that this pain won't last forever. It might be hard to believe right now, but this moment could be the start of something incredible." She looked at me skeptically, but also with hope. "How do you know?" I began sharing my story, slowly but with honesty and openness, about Ethan, Sarah, the betrayal, and my journey afterward. As I spoke, I saw her eyes light up with recognition and hope. By the end of our conversation, she was smiling softly, looking lighter than before. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "Your story gives me hope. I never thought I'd feel hopeful again." In that moment, I understood the full meaning of my journey. The betrayal I endured wasn't just about me, it was also about the ability to turn my darkest moments into a guiding light for others. My pain had a purpose. It had given me wisdom, compassion, and the strength to lift others from the same darkness I had once known. That night, as I walked home, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. My life had come full circle, from being lost and heartbroken to becoming a beacon of strength and hope. I realized that Ethan and Sarah's betrayal had been more than just a painful experience. It had been a catalyst that transformed me into the woman I was always meant to be. As I stood at my window, looking out at the city lights, I reflected on how far I had come. My heart was no longer burdened by anger or bitterness. Instead, it was filled with gratitude and peace. I had not just survived their betrayal, I had thrived because of it. In the end, my greatest victory wasn't ruling Ethan and Sarah's world. It wasn't even about revenge or forgiveness. My greatest victory was in learning to rule my own world with strength, kindness, and unshakable self-love. They had once shattered my heart, but I had rebuilt it stronger than ever. And as I looked ahead to the future, I knew my story was no longer defined by betrayal or pain, but by resilience, growth, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing exactly who I am. I had conquered my past, embraced my present, and was ready to create a future full of possibilities, not just for myself, but for everyone who had ever felt broken. And in that truth, I found my greatest meaning. My story had become an inspiration, a testament to the power of turning pain into purpose. I was finally free, truly happy, and fully myself. And I knew without a doubt that no matter what came next, I would always rise, stronger, wiser, and more powerful than before. That was my true triumph, my real victory, and it was more beautiful than anything I had ever imagined. Thank you all for listening to this story with our channel. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe to motivate us to bring more interesting stories. Much love to all of you.